I know what you're saying, but the idea is that if you have a minimum amount that you allow people to pay, then at least the people that are working for that company will have a real income where they can pay their bills and feed themselves. And that this company, because they have all the power, they have all the money, and a poor worker who's stepping into the market for the first time or, just hasn't been able to acquire job skills that would allow them to make much more money per hour, that they would be taken advantage of by this larger corporation.
Well, the corporations don't have all the power because they're not the only employer. I mean, all employers compete with one another for labor, and they bid up wages. I mean, you can't pay people less than the market value of their labor because somebody else will hire them. So you could talk about, wouldn't it be great if everybody can earn more money?
Has there ever been a proven example of this where they've had no minimum wage and it's been a financial boom?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, we didn't always have a minimum wage in the United States. I mean, it happened really in the 1930s. But you can look at situations of countries that have no minimum wage and they have very low levels of unemployment. And you can look at areas where the
what
government—
countries is this?
Well, I mean, they don't have a minimum wage in Singapore. And there are countries that—
Isn't Singapore an interesting example, though? It's an extremely wealthy country, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons. And they have low. Yeah, they don't. It's very easy to do business. But you can look at examples where the United States has imposed a minimum wage on other countries. I mean, the minimum wage did a lot of damage in Puerto Rico. But look at another American territory, American Samoa, right? American Samoa. We basically destroyed American Samoa with our minimum wage. I mean, the Samoans are furious about it. This happened years ago, actually. And the reason I even found out about it, I was watching 60 Minutes, and they were doing a report about, I think, football players in Samoa. And during the report, they mentioned that there was like a depression going on in Samoa. And it was like there was 30% unemployment and really high inflation. And I was like, what the hell's going on in Samoa? So I wanted to research that on my own. And I found out that we imposed the minimum wage on Samoa and we destroyed all their jobs. Their two biggest employers were a Chicken of the Sea and StarKist. They were canning tuna and then they were shipping the tuna back to the mainland. But the minute they raised the minimum wage, they made the production uncompetitive because now you had to pay the higher wages plus the shipping costs to get the tuna back to the mainland. So they all the canneries shut down, and then it created massive unemployment. And then prices went way up on the island because they no longer had boats coming back and forth to pick up the tuna. So now all of a sudden the shipping cost of imports went way up. So they had massive inflation, sky high unemployment, all because of minimum wage. So you could look at examples of how minimum wage destroys jobs, right there. Yet they continue to advocate for these higher wages because it sounds good. Oh, everybody should earn a decent living. Well, not if you don't have any skills. You can't. And of course, a lot of kids, they're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I mean, people live with their parents still. The most important thing is getting a job so you can acquire the skills to get a better job. To move up the ladder in an organization, to enhance your value to employers in general.
And
right?
what's the argument against this? I mean,
against
I'm sure
what?
Against what you're saying about minimum wage, against all these ideas that you're just proposing. Do you get a lot of pushback? I mean, I'm sure what you're saying, this free market capitalism approach, there's a lot of people that oppose it.
Of course. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't think it out. They think with their mind or their hearts, rather. And they don't even get the origin of the minimum wage was racism. I mean, the first minimum wages here, it was designed to keep employers from hiring the Chinese or from hiring blacks because that's where the minimum wage came from. To try to prevent employers from hiring certain people. So they said, well, let's have a minimum wage, and that will reduce hiring of people who have less skills. And the labor unions, the biggest supporters of the minimum wage are the labor unions. And none of the labor unions workers earn the minimum wage. So you might think, why do they so care about the minimum wage if they get paid a lot higher than minimum wage? And it's because you always have a competition between skilled labor and unskilled labor, right? So let's say a businessman has the option of hiring a skilled person to do something, and let's say the skilled person is going to charge $20 an hour, or an unskilled person. And let's say I can hire 3 unskilled people for $5 an hour, and that equals 15. Well, hey, I'd rather hire the unskilled worker. I can pay $5 an hour to do the same job of one skilled worker. But now if the skilled worker could lobby for a $7 minimum wage, now if I have to hire 3 unskilled people, it costs $21. Aha! Now all of a sudden I hire the guy with skills. So the labor unions benefit by keeping unskilled people unemployed because they have more skills and therefore they can get more work.
That sounds like a complicated mess to me.
Well, it is a mess for the people that get priced out of a job. Yeah.
Now, democratic socialism is the thing right now. You're hearing it all the time. You're hearing it constantly in the news. What do you attribute that? Do you think it's a frustration with just lifelong politicians? Like, what do you think it is that's causing this uprise and upswing? Like the woman, what is her name that won in New York?
Yeah, she's actually half Puerto Rican. One of my my countrymen. But yeah, I forget her name.
One of our countrymen. Isn't Puerto Rico the United States?
No, actually, I found this out as I'm traveling now. I still have an American passport. But when I mention what country I'm from and I look where you live, I always have to select Puerto Rico as a country. Even though it's part of America, it's still considered its own country, even though you still are American citizens when you live there and you travel on a U.S. passport. It's listed as a separate country from the United States.
I was just going to read her name from the tweet.
Yeah, that's her.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 28 years old.
Yeah, well,
Damn.
she beat a 10-term
incumbent.
And of course he was a white guy. That's a negative for him.
She's
a
woman of color.
Yeah,
Latina.
Nice looking woman too, actually.
Beautiful.
So, yeah. So, but the thing is, people I think in that community are just voting out of frustration. In fact, I looked at her commercial, and it's a very powerful commercial. Kind of like about women like me are not supposed to run for office. We're not supposed to. Of course, that's all a bunch of nonsense. But it's a story that I think resonated with a lot of people. Like, hey, let's stick it to the man, right? And that's what they did. But I think that this wave is going to be bigger than people think. I think people are underestimating. They're saying, "Oh, this is unique because she's in a heavily minority community, and so that message worked better." But look, Bernie Sanders.
Read this here that Jamie just pulled up. She won in a district where she didn't even run. Progressive candidate also won a primary in her neighboring district in the Bronx as a write-in for the Reform Party.
Oh, well, that's all right. But she won. She won?
Yeah.
I wonder. Well, I don't think you could have 2 House seats simultaneously.
This is crazy.
But
She's hot.
But if you look at Bernie Sanders' appeal, it wasn't just poor people and minorities that were attracted to the Sanders message.
And what was that message that was attractive?
It was
to them?
social. It was the
Giving
corporations. We got to tax the rich. We got to tax the corporations.
Redistribution of wealth.
And it's all about getting stuff for free, right? It's all about free health care, free education, guaranteed jobs. I mean, they want the government to guarantee everybody a job.
Well, that was one of the things that Bernie said, that they could guarantee people jobs.
But you can't
everyone in the country.
How's the government going to guarantee jobs? First of all, where's the government?
Insane.
Where's the government going to get the money? They did that in the Soviet Union. Yeah, everybody has a job, but nobody makes anything, and so everybody is poor. I mean, you can't. They want to guarantee a $15 an hour job plus benefits, plus vacation, plus health care. To do what? And of course, what's the government? The government's going to assign jobs to everybody? What are they all going to do?
Exactly.
I mean, people forget that we don't want jobs. We want the productivity that results from the job. So it's about productive employment, not make work, right? We don't want the government digging holes and filling them. We want real jobs. And how does the private sector know what jobs are needed? It's demand. It's individuals that want something. They're guided by a profit motive. The government doesn't make a profit. There's nothing to guide them to efficiently allocate resources. And how is the government going to just figure out what people should do and just assign them